Going to show you how to get started with Terraspace in the Azure cloud. To do that, we're just going to go through the getting started guide right here. So we click on the Azure cloud right there, and then next page. And the first basically step is to install Terraspace. Now I'm not going to go through all these instructions here, but I'll just cover them briefly. There are basically a couple different ways to install Terraspace, the gem installer, the standalone installer, and the Docker installer even. I recommend just using the gem installer because then you have full control of the Ruby installation. Terraform is another prerequisite here, so you do need to install Terraform. For that, I recommend using TFENV. TFENV is just going to allow you to switch different versions of Terraform, and that's pretty useful because Terraform actually has pretty frequent releases. All right, and then once that's ready, you just run Terraspace check setup. So I'll run that right now on my terminal. And you can see it basically detects the version Terraspace, the version Terraform, and it says you're all set. That's what you should expect to see, okay? Next step, I think actually is one of the most hardest steps to actually get set up is actually your credentials, okay? So let's make sure you basically have your AZ CLI command basically working. That's very convenient. Terraspace actually doesn't really need that, but it's really nice to have that. And then you have to set up some environmental variables for Azure for the basically Terraspace to talk to the Azure API. It does it via the Azure SDK. So to do that, you're going to have to run AZ login. It's going to prompt you to log in and enter like a token, and then you should be able to log in. Now, sometimes you have to specify the tenant also, depending on your setup, okay? And then once that's done, you should be able to group your resources and group your storages and group your accounts or list them just to check. So I'm just gonna run that. You can see I have basically a resource group right there. And I also probably have a storage account. Or no, actually, I think this is a brand new account. So I don't have any storage accounts yet, as you kind of see over here. Let me just refresh here. And you see I don't have any storage accounts yet, okay? So once that's done, then we know the AZ command's working, so that's really good. It can be useful for debugging. And you do have to set all these environmental variables. I've already set all these up. So I'm just gonna actually clone down this repository that we've provided just to check that the SDK can be talked to, okay? So let's clone that down, cd into Azure check. You should run bundled install dependencies. Then run bundle exec ruby Azure check. And what that does is it makes basically a SDK API call and lists the Terraform resources, the resource groups, not the Terraform, the Azure resource groups. And you can see there's one right there, basically says successfully connected Azure with your ARM client ID and ARM client secret, okay? So that looks good, and you definitely have to make sure that your credentials are working here, or else you're not gonna be able to kind of pretty much do anything. So, and there are also links here to the Azure instructions to how to set up your service account there, and also links here to set up your CI here, so you can always follow those instructions in addition to this, okay? So next step, this is where we can actually jump into Terraspace stuff. So this is where it gets a little more fun. So Terraspace new project infra plugging Azure RM examples. That's what we're gonna run. Let's go back up to the parent directory here. So I'm running that command, and what that command does is the first part, project infra. Let me go back up here, right here. New project infra, that's just the name of the project I decided to use. I'm just using infra, so it generated all this. Then the plugin, you want to specify Azure RM or just -p for short for a plugin. Then -- examples, just to generate some starter examples. Then that generates basically a full project with working examples. If we run treeing here, you can see kind of what the structure looks like. What we're going to look at first is this config Terraform folder. Let's look at that. That has a backend.tf and also a provider.tf, okay? So these are just starting examples, okay? But I'm going to point out something right here. Look, if you notice, basically this right here has ERB templating. See this less than % equal sign, and then the closing one, a % greater than sign. In between that basically runs, allows you to run templating logic, and it's actually just pure Ruby. So this expansion method is actually a core helper method that's built into Terraspace that takes this string expression and then expands or replaces basically all these words in cap locks here. So colon location gets replaced and colon subscription hash gets replaced. I do want to talk a little bit about this subscription hash. Subscription hash is a short 4-character hash of the longer subscription ID. And the reason that's done is because what's being created here is the Azure backend, which is a storage account. It's essentially like a bucket. The storage account has actually a lot of restrictions on the naming. It's pretty short in what you are allowed to name it, only 24 characters long. So what Terraspace does is it generates a unique subscription hash, that's consistent, just to shorten the subscription ID, so then it's gonna be unique. Also, it's not allowed any dashes, so no minus signs in the name, so we have to get rid of the minus signs there, so the subscription hash does not have minus signs. The subscription ID does, okay? Location, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's like East US as the default, or West US or West US 2. Environment, that's the TSENV. So basically, the TSENV could be like TSENV equals dev here. So you can have a TSENV dev or TSENV prod, whatever you want to name it, and that's what gets substituted here. So this file is actually going to get compiled down. There's a pre-processing step, essentially a compilation phase for Terraspace that takes this file in. It evaluates all these templating expressions, and it builds a Terraform project, essentially copying this backend TF into that Terraform project Terraspace cache folder, essentially. And I'll show you all of this once we start deploying resources here. But I just want to take some time to explain how this templating kind of works and substitution works. And the reason why Terraspace does this is it essentially allows you to manage this backend TF in a centralized way with a little bit programming logic here. Okay, the provider is pretty simple here. This is the bare minimum Azure RM provider, and you need this basically features as block as a required statement. So that explains this. This config Terraforms can be copied into a Terraspace cache folder that contains the Terraform project, and that's what gets basically CD into, and Terraform's comply is gonna be run in there. You're gonna see all happening action soon. Okay, and then there's these starter examples that we'll cover next, but let's just go down here and click next page. So now basically the next page, review the project, is saying, let's review the app modules and review app stacks demo project and discuss a little bit about the difference between modules and stacks, okay? So these folders were generated as part of using the examples flag. You got this for free, okay? And here you can see this is a module that creates a Azure storage account, okay? And then here is a stack that makes use of the module. If you go right here, you see storage account, then ... modules example. So this is the module call out, and it's going to basically using this module to create a storage account. So what are the difference between modules and stacks? Well, they're both modules because in Terraform, everything is a module. Okay, so the main difference is Terraspace is just trying to provide some type of organizational pattern here. Basically, stacks are supposed to contain your business logic, and that's what you're supposed to deploy. Modules contain reusable module functions here. So it's just kind of guiding you and giving you a little bit organizational structure here, because in Terraform, again, everything's a module, and just like saying everything's a function, there's no organization there. So that's what this setup is all about. So you can see it's going to create a storage account with the name SA at the beginning, and then using random pet this ID in order to provide a unique storage account name here. And one interesting note is the separator is by default usually a minus sign, but remember, minus signs aren't allowed in storage accounts, so it's actually a blank string here, just to make sure it's a valid name in for Azure. Okay, so we reviewed the code, we covered the difference between modules and stacks. Let's go to the next step. We're going to deploy the infrastructure now, so let's go ahead and run Terraspace up demo. And the first part is going to do is actually build basically see Terraspace cache, the locations including here, the TSE environment, the stacks, and then demo. So it's basically deploying this demo stack. Now, you also notice here it says creating a storage account. So this storage account right here, this is actually, let's go back to the backend code right here. This is actually this expanded value of this guy right here. You can actually also see if you go to Terraspace cache, you can click on backend TF here, and you can see the expanded expression here. So see, this line number 5, line number 6 here is right here. That's the basically evaluate value. Okay. Okay, and once basically a storage account gets created, and that takes a little time, and then it creates also a container right away for the Terraform state. So this backend is where your Terraform state can be stored, and this is basically being all done by Terraspace for you, so you don't have to worry about actually creating it. Okay, I'm gonna actually type yes down here and then continue reviewing this. Okay, so basically it created the storage account and a container for then so it can store your state information. Now it's gonna CD into the stack directory here, see? and then essentially just run Terraform init and Terraform apply. As part of building this Terraspace cache folder, the backend was copied over, the provider was copied over, also the stack main outputs and variables from here was also copied over. See, this is actually the same as this. It's the same, and there's no ERB in there, so it's basically the same. Okay, and then what happens is it runs a Terraform init, a Terraform apply, where then it prompts us right here, and then I just type yes right here, and then it created all the resources being a storage account. So here's the storage account that I created. The storage account name is SA secure bug. Okay, so you could check on it by going AZ storage account list, and then I'm just going to use JQ to filter it a little bit. And you can see here's the storage account created by basically our Terraform demo stack right here. And then this is the storage account that was created to store the Terraform state information here with our basically our subscription hash. Okay, let's also look for it in here. Let's just refresh this page and it should show up. This is the portal here. So both of them just showed up there. Okay, and that was pretty much what was deployed. Okay, next step, we're gonna make a change. So we're gonna basically is just saying here, let's look at some of these variables here, and then we'll change basically enable HTTPS traffic only. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, Terraspace encourages the use of TFR files to change your variables, so then you have different variables for, let's say, the dev environment or the prod environment. So we need to create some TFR files, and the recommended place to create that is under stacks demo TFR, is a folder here. So we don't actually have to do it manually. Terraspace has a kind of neat command, Terraspace seed demo, where it's going to seed your TFR files. Basically, what it does is actually evaluates this, it parses this to variables file, and then basically creates your TFRs file from that. Okay, so let me open that up now, and you can see it right here. And this just needs to be refreshed. Okay, so it's actually right in here. There we go. So dev right there. So you can see this. It was basically it parsed variables.tf, and then it basically generate this TFR files for us ready. So I'm gonna uncomment that out and change that to false. So then we can update this this Terraform deployment. So up demo, Terraspace up demo. I'm just making a very simple change here just to demonstrate how it works. So there is basically rebuilding the Terraspace cache, and then it's going to essentially do a Terraform apply. I'm just waiting for it to prompt us. It's going to show us the diff of what is about to change. So it says right here, like enable HTTPS traffic only true to false. So we'll just type in yes and enter. And it's going to apply that change now. There we go. It's modifying that change. And shortly, it should be done applying that change. So let's go back to this docs here. So it's just talking about creating starter TFR files with a cool C command, and then just changing that from true to false. So apply the change, is done now. So that's good. Let's go on to next step now. So next step, this is just saying run the Terraspace up command, which we've already done. We've already confirmed all that. So the last step is cleaning up. Let's destroy everything that we just created, okay? So to do that, you run Terraspace down demo, okay? And it's going to essentially build the Terraspace, the Terraform project again, the Terraspace cache folder. Then it's going to run Terraform destroy right here. It's just refreshing state, and it's going to prompt us very shortly. It's still refreshing some state here. And now enter value. Do you want everything to be destroyed? Yes, let's destroy everything. So this is going to destroy essentially the storage account, as well as actually the resource group that this actually creates, because like it creates also a resource group. Everything in Azure requires a resource group, and all your resources are nested under there. And this is just a starter example, so we decided to create the storage group so we have kind of consistent baseline there. So anyway, so it is now destroying the storage account, and it's going to destroy the resource group and also this random pet resource, and that's going to take a little time. So I'm going to come back when it's done, so you don't have to wait. Okay, so that took about 1 minute and 46 seconds here to destroy all the resources. So let's go back here and kind of refresh our storage accounts. See, secure bug is still there. Let's refresh. That should be gone. And that is gone. But you notice it does keep this storage account basically for the Terraform state, because then you can kind of keep history there. So this is actually created outside of Terraform, but within the within Terraspace. Okay, so that is it. Let's click on the next step. Okay, so these are just next steps. There's more documentation here about different Terraspace features, a little more documentation about how you can configure the backend, the ability to deploy multiple stacks, and the Terra file and all that. There's a bunch of different features here, but that covers how to get started with Terraspace and the Azure cloud. Cheers.